Now that you know a little bit about what Parse is for and what it can do for you, let's take a look at it in a lot more detail. So I'm going to start by downloading the blank Xcode project. And I'd recommend doing this at the beginning of every project you make with Parse, just to make sure that you've got the most up-to-date version of what they're doing. So this is 1.7.1 that I'm using, but if there's a later version available when you're trying this out, then definitely use that. So I've opened the zip file now. So jumping over to the Finder, there's my starter project. So we want the Swift starter project. So just click on that and then click Parse starter project right there. And that will load it up in Xcode for you. So let's have a quick look and see what we've got. It's all very familiar. We've got our viewController.swift file, and we've got our app delegate that we're very used to. You can see, however, that it's not just the basic app delegate. We've got some extra lines of code which essentially enable us to use Parse and all its functions. So we'll look at this in a lot more detail, especially the Facebook integration later on in the course. But let's just get ourselves up and running for the moment. So the one line that we need to add is setting our application ID. So obviously don't copy this from the video, copy it from your application ID when you created your app. And as you can see in the instructions here, we need to open up the app delegate file and then change the set application ID line to have our own options. So let's just take a look. I'm just going to use Command F to find it. There we go. So we just need to uncomment that line, and indeed we'll just get rid of it and replace it with our code. Okay, that's good. There is one thing we actually need to fix in the boilerplate template here, and that is in Swift 1.2 NS error was updated to an optional type, which means we need to change that from an exclamation mark to force unwrap to question mark optional. You may well not have to do that if you're using a later version of Parse. Okay, so we can just run that just to make sure that we don't have any errors before we write any code. But the stage that we want to get to in this video is to have saved some data on Parse by the end of the video. So let's try and do that. We're going to do that using the code in our viewController.swift file. Here's our simulator just setting up. Okay, so we can see that things are looking good. We've got the option to be sent notifications. So it looks like all the code has been set up correctly. So let's just click OK and allow that to happen. Okay, so saving objects to Parse. We can think of Parse essentially like an online database store. In many ways, we can just upload our variables and objects and then download them later on to use either in the same device or a different device. So to see how we do that, I'm going to introduce you to the Parse documentation, which is really good. Obviously, you learn a great deal from watching me do these things, and I'm very happy for you to continue to do that. I think that's a great way to learn. But there is great documentation on Parse, and because a lot of what you do as you're making apps as a developer is going to be reading documentation and then writing code based on that, I think it's great to get into a bit of practice now. So once you're in the iOS documentation, click on Objects, and then we'll see how to save an object to Parse. So there's our code there. I'm going to switch over to Swift. All of them are Objective-C by default, but of course we want Swift. And I'm going to advise against just copying and pasting this, because then not much of it goes into your brain, but just try and look at it and see what's going on, and then we'll go over and recreate it. So essentially we're creating a PF object with a certain class name. So the class name describes the type of object. So in this case, a game score, and that can be anything that we like. And then we're saving some specific values to it. So it's a bit like a dictionary, really, that we're saving that the score is 1337, the name is Sean Platt, etc., etc. And then we save in the background. So let's try and recreate this ourselves. Let's do something a little different. So let's say we want to create a table of products, and we want to have some information about these products. So maybe a name, a description, price, that kind of thing. And then we're going to be able to download all of those to the user's apps. So let's create a PF object. There we go. With a class name of products. Notice, by the way, we've imported the Parse framework here, and that's why we can use this PF object. Without this Parse framework being imported, we wouldn't be able to use that. And then we'll just create some details for it. So product name equals, let's say we're going to sell some pizza. So the name is pizza. We'll have a description, which is going to be deliciously cheesy. Fantastic. And finally, we'll have a price, which I'll put at $9.99. So this is just an opportunity to use a non-string and see how Parse deals with the different variable types there. Okay, and then we use the save in background with block. We could just use save in background, but I like to know when these things have been successful. So we've got a Boolean and an error. So the Boolean essentially is whether or not it's been successful. So I'm going to call that success and then error. And for now, we'll check if success is equal to true, then print to the logs successful. Else print failed. And in that case, we might also want to print the error message to the logs. Okay, so let's take a look. Obviously, we won't see anything in the app itself, but we should, with any luck, see the word successful. There we go. You might have noticed that the symbol up here told us that there was something going on with the web, and we've got the word successful there. Fantastic. We don't have to rely on our app just telling us that we've been successful though, because we can actually look at the contents of our Parse data store on the web. So I'm going to go over to my Instagram dashboard there. So I just command clicked to open in a new tab, and then I'll click core to have a look at the data store. And you can see we've got one user here. Obviously we didn't create that user. That user was created automatically when we signed in to this app, or when we just ran the app and did something with it. So this just uniquely identifies that particular device. And then the one that I'm interested in here is products. There we go, and you can see we've got a randomly generated object ID, we've got our description, our name, and our price. And you can see that both of those have been called a string, and that one is a number. And we can store all sorts of different variable types. So we can do arrays, we can do dictionaries, we can do arrays, we can do Boolean variables, we can even upload files and store them on here. So there really is no limit into what we can store on the Parse cloud storage. So now that we've got everything up and running, in the next video we'll see how to download information from Parse and update information that's already there.